all color trading for men and women, all villains. This is definitely the most daring revenge of the year. Korean dramas have completely exposed the dark side of Korea's chaebols and the entertainment industry. Let's just say, how many of those top stars rely on their talent? Behind the scenes full color trading has long been commonplace. But this time, it was actually the prosecutor personally secretly filming it. Seeing the two panicked, he couldn't help but whistle excitedly. But he did this not to expose himself, but to rise to the throne and seek revenge. For this, he's willing to give everything, including his wife, a top celebrity who was once involved in the deal. Although he is now nearly 50 years old, and the old Huang has completely lost his popularity, their past union was also about mutual exploitation. But little do they know, people are more likely to give during their lowest points. Sincerely, congratulations. While my phone was running out of battery, I came across the latest explicit content between Zhu Jishun and Ji Yuan. Korean dramas. The male lead, Fang Taixi, was born into a poor working-class family. His father was a labor union representative at a steel mill. However, this upright father, in his efforts to fight for workers' rights, but he was caught in corruption with prosecutors and employers working together to frame him. On the night of the sentence, to clear his name and protect his last bit of dignity, desperately choosing to end oneself, the old newspaper on the wall and the yellowed family portrait, he witnessed the breakdown of his family. It also became a scar in Fang Tai and Xi's hearts that could never heal. To take revenge, he studied desperately. Fortunately, Korea does not need the official review by Fang Taixi. In the end, he successfully brought the prosecutor's medal. However, after entering the legal field, only then did he realize that it was just a game played by the nobility playing with the rules. To squeeze into the upper class, he quit his rent. He gave everything he had to buy a second-hand Mercedes to boost the facade. She stayed at her sister's shabby barbershop. He once tried to please a certain minister or prosecutor. It hung on the railing of the hotel restaurant for a full 5 hours. He humbly knelt by the roadside, vomiting listening to the harsh mockery of passers-by. But inside, it was roaring wildly. He longed to stand at the pinnacle of the world, looking down on those who were arrogant. What he needed was a key to open the doors of the powerful. At his most confused moment, Qiu Shangya's name appeared in his sight. As a top national star, Qiu Shangya became embroiled in a complicated lawsuit and appeared in court as a witness. Fang Taixi stood at the end of the corridor, gazing at the place surrounded by lights, a woman who appears confident and composed. She realized this was not just a case, but the perfect opportunity for her to become famous overnight. Soon, this century-old wedding hailed as the Korean version of a 100% bride, a prosecutor from a grassroots background that caused a sensation across Asia, and her union with the queen of the Korean wave. It has written a romantic legend that attracts nationwide attention. Behind this is a game of mutual benefit. The good times didn't last. Qiu Shangya soon became embroiled in a tax evasion scandal involving billions of Korean won. Her reputation plummeted, and the applause she once received turned into mama. Those peers who had shared hardships with him began to mock him. At an awkward party, he was encouraged by everyone to sing. Even though my heart is filled with rejection and bitterness, he could only force a smile and accept the microphone from the video. His slightly haggard face and melancholic eyes. Online, it is recklessly interpreted as a sign of expiration. He looked at his face, whose fine lines were gradually appearing in the mirror, and fell into deep self-doubt, worried that he was about to be completely abandoned by this era. Meanwhile, Fang Taixi was in a different form of struggle. At the birthday banquet of a political tycoon, he made a wild toast, singing loudly, with performances that are almost comical, flattering those who controlled his career. In others' eyes, he was a freeloader who climbed up thanks to his wife's fame. He is also a well-known Doberman in the district prosecutor's office. To earn merit, he would stop at nothing, vomiting painfully in the bathroom. Looking at the self in the mirror who lost his dignity in order to climb higher, he felt extremely disgusted inside. He knew it. Those so-called colleagues were all waiting to see him make a fool of himself, waiting for him. Abandoned by the organization like a wife, Fang Tai thanked him and decided to take a desperate gamble. He set his sights on the city's most influential mayor, Nam Huishun. In the dimly lit izakaya, he and his old colleague whispered about Nam Haihun. It is said that he colluded with chaebols behind the scenes for large-scale full-color trading. But countless prosecutors who investigated him ultimately met tragic ends. But Fang Taixi had already made up his mind to be careful. Fang Taixi returned home. He noticed his wife Qiu Shangya hurriedly getting ready to leave. Between the two, a fragile and false calm was maintained. Although he tried hard to show concern, but Qiu Shangya's flickering eyes and cold tone were clear, hiding some unspeakable secret. Only in the deep of night did the offerings finally endure. He was alone flipping through secret files about Nam Haihun and the WR group. He discovered that under Li Liangmai's manipulation, Nam Haihun is rapidly rising through secret funds and real estate speculation controversies, and is a presidential candidate. And Li Liangmei, who controls the entertainment industry and the media, is dangerous. The woman was the financial backer behind his wife, Qiu Shangya. On the other side, Li Liangmei and Qiu Shangya were secretly staying at a private home. a cruel conversation was taking place in the small restaurant. Li Liangmei used her shares and Qiu Shangya's scandal to threaten her, forcing her to hand over the most promising new generation actors in the company. Pei Yuncheng asked her to accompany Mayor Nam Haihun and Qiu Shangya, who fell into extreme struggle. He once got stuck in the mire for fame and fortune. He didn't want to make a comeback in such a dirty way, not wanting to ruin the innocent Pei Yuncheng. He decisively refused. The two parted on bad terms, and Qiu Shangya, exhausted and smelling of alcohol, was still exhausted. Back home, in the cold bathroom, helpless vomiting, Mrs. Fang held her shoulder. His tone was full of guilt. She felt that as a prosecutor, but at the wife's hardest moment, she couldn't help at all, and the two sat on the floor. At this moment, their shared illness deepened their relationship. What about the opposite? Fang Taixi found someone undercover at the district prosecutor's office. The intelligence officer found Li Liangmei and Nam Haihun. It can be said that they are inseparable by inseparable shadows. He also maintains close relationships with the SBC vice president and the crossing party representative. They even often arrange a reception for the other party, which is too much to thank them. I am very satisfied with these clues. He immediately pulled out a plate of cash. Although the woman accepted, her expression was hard to hide her disappointment.
You're also at the police station, Lolo.
Fang Taixi obtained key evidence of Mayor Nam Haihun's illegal hospitality. Preparations are underway for an in-depth investigation. Unexpectedly, the top pitcher overheard the rumors from somewhere. The boss, in order to keep his position, tried every possible way to obstruct him. They even fought fiercely, but Fang was too thankful. There was no way out. But he also understood that relying on himself alone wouldn't work. He decided to take a gamble and went to meet Quan Zhongwook, the heir of Air Group. Li Liangmei was actually his two stepmothers. At this stage, Fang Taixi is fighting for the family's management rights, and taking advantage of this, successfully formed an alliance with the other party under the guise of interests. With the country's third largest conglomerate and the help of heirs, and was just beginning to express his gratitude. For the first time, he revealed his ambition.
Oh, Yunxi, bold. You must protect yourself, and go with you.
Meanwhile, Qiu Shangya discovered the company he runs is facing bankruptcy, and B.A. Yun, whom she saw as her bottom line, became the so-called leading man opportunity. She actually agreed to Li Liangmei's illegal hospitality. After learning the truth, Qiu Shangya drove to the WR hotel trying to stop all of this. At this moment, Fang Taixi had already arranged for the people in place. They took the hotel manager's fingerprint from the wine bottle, then sneak into the office and steal the spare room card from the mayor's room. He was just too polite. As soon as I got my room card, the listening equipment I had prepared in advance was already working. However, when the woman was about to leave, but unexpectedly he spotted Qiu Shangya. He was just too polite. Although surprised, there was no time to worry about that anymore. The plan must go ahead. At this moment, Qiu Shangya was in the hotel corridor, recalling her previous ordeal. She seemed to see that the person standing at the door was not Yuncheng. Instead, it was herself, a deceased person, urging her from the side. When he was about to open the door, a drop of blood fell, as if it was foreshadowing something. This is a lifelong painful memory that will never fade from him. He collapsed against the wall. He couldn't even say a word. As the young man entered the room, Fang Taixi overheard the conversation inside. Unable to turn things around, Qiu Shangya also prepared to leave, and the two brushed past each other at the elevator entrance. Although both were shocked by each other's appearance, there was no communication. Meanwhile, upon entering the top floor, Taixi walked with determination. He went to the mayor's suite and took out the room card, entered the room. After entering, he immediately opened the recording, following the messy clothes and sounds, all the way to the bedroom. He swallowed nervously. All the dirty evidence was recorded. The plan finally succeeded. Seeing his opponent panic, he excitedly whistled. The next day, the other party attended a public event as usual. It was as if he was completely unaffected. The chaebol behind the mayor watched the secretly filmed video. He wasn't worried at all, because he controls the entertainment industry and the media. This video could not have spread. Fang Taixi showed an unfathomable smile, reminding her the real show was just beginning. Li Liangmei keenly caught the ambition in Fang Taixi's heart. She mercilessly threatened to use her power to kick him out of the prosecutor's office. Faced with Li Liangmei's arrogance, Fang Taixi showed great disdain. He explicitly warned Li Liangmei not to touch her woman again, or else she would not hesitate to expose all her secrets to the world. Li Liangmei commented in a tone that was almost mocking. Fang Taxi is an opponent who is annoying yet full of charm, but what she hated most was being. Before leaving, he mentioned the man Park Jae-sangbang, who was about to be released from prison, implying that Chu Shangya never ceased correspondence or phone calls with him during his imprisonment. Fang Taxi heard this name. He didn't say anything more and turned to leave back home. He saw his wife sitting alone at the dining table with a soju in front of her. It became his only comfort. Fang Taxi pressed his wife about where she had gone last night, regarding Chu Shangya's claim that in handling the aftermath, he clearly did not fully trust the trust between husband and wife. At that moment, a huge crack appeared. Chu Shangya pleaded with Fang Taxi for the sake of this marriage. For mutual devotion, they suppressed the male mayor scandal. She mentioned Li Liangmei's important role in this situation, warning her that making enemies with such people would do no good. However, Fang Taxi was extremely resolute. He mentioned Park Jae-sang, the man who once killed someone for him. The moment Chu Shangya heard the name, a flash of panic and coldness in his eyes. He strongly denied any private contact with Park Jae-sang, yet he couldn't hide the fighting power deep within his heart. Chu Shangya chose to escape. Citing exhaustion, Chu Shangya hid in the bathroom. Trembling, he opened a letter. The words on the letter made him feel as if he'd fallen into an ice cellar. At that time, Park Jae-hyang's confession from prison was also a threat. From the letter, it is clear that a secret of a human life is hidden within. Chu Shangya trembled as she tore the letter to shreds, lighting it with the faint candlelight. Watching those secrets turn to ashes. Meanwhile, Fang Taxi rummaged through the drawer in her room and pulled out the long-sealed hard drive. With the password input in 2018, the details of that bloody murder case unfolded one by one on the screens. Park Jae-jo's pained and twisted face when taken away by the police. The glaring bloodstains on the bed sheets at the crime scene looked similar. It was a merciless knife that mercilessly pried it open. Fang Taxi was the most secret wound in his heart. Their intersection did not begin with love, but with that hidden murder case. When Fang Taxi walked into the bathroom, he smelled something strange. Traces of burning still remained on the ground. He opened the trash can. They found the letters that had been burned and incomplete. The situation became even more complicated. The next day, Chu Shangya was injured while filming. He forced a smile, signaling that he was fine. The director arranged for a stunt double, which was no coincidence. It was a carefully arranged chess game by Fang Taxi. On the set of filming, the standing girl professionally mimics every move Chu Shangya. Even the pain of struggling out of the car was perfectly imitated. He only smiled. The director praised her performance highly, while the real Chu Shangya sat to the side, expressionless. He stared at this shadow that could almost replace himself. Sitting side by side in the dressing room, the subtle sense of rivalry and similarity between them was felt. The air was filled with Fang Taxi's instructions to the girl, comprehensive eavesdropping and stalking. At that moment, Chu Shangya found an excuse to go to the restroom. The standing girl keenly sensed the opportunity. She quietly swapped their phones, utilized technical means. Within just a few minutes, he invaded Chu Shangya's private space. Inside that narrow carriage, the stream of data sprouted across the screen like vines. When they crossed paths again, the girl politely returned the phone, claiming she had taken it incorrectly. Chu Shangya did not suspect anything. On the other side, their conversation echoed through Fang Taxi's ear. When he heard the name Han Jixiu, Chu Shangya's expression clearly darkened. At that moment, a call from the prison arrived as scheduled.
Don't you recognize me? I don't know you anymore. Who comes to me? Know what? Know who? Knowledge. 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 Understanding. I will give your sister everything. She has to help you. My sister. Sister.
Fang Taxi fell into extreme self-struggle and pain in the office. He looked at the photo on the table of his once happy time with Chu Shangya, but inside, the lines have torn apart and blood flows profusely. At the same time, a news message popped up on the phone screen. A media personality named Choi Ji-ho has been exposed. Chu Shangya, Fang Tai, and Xie explained the reasons for their fear of each other. Their connection began with a murder case. Fang Taxi knows who did this. She called Li Liangmei. His tone was icy cold, questioning what tricks this woman is trying to play. Meanwhile, Li Liangmei was hanging upside down on fitness equipment. He presents a posture of a victor. He believed he had mastered Fang Taxi's most fatal weakness. That was the bomb in his heart that could explode at any moment. He threatened Fang Taxi. You must know how to go with the flow. Otherwise, Chu Shangya's acting career would have come to a complete end. She even bluntly demanded that Fang Taxi and Chu Shangya kneel and beg for mercy, enjoying the twisted pleasure brought by the trampling. But after hanging up, Fang Taxi turned the phone around. He made the mayor's scandal public. After seeing the news, Nam Hai-hoon. He also approached Li Liangmei, and their conflict finally erupted.
That is why you got provoked! That is why you got provoked! That is why you got provoked! That is why you got provoked!
Fang Taxi publicly disclosed it as a prosecutor. They exposed the male mayor's illegal bribery and sexual entertainment scandal. This move caused an earthquake in the political and business circles. Since the male star is an artist under Chu Shangya's company, this also put him at the center of the storm, where he was besieged by reporters to the point of being completely trapped. Escorted by bodyguards, they fled in disgrace from the desolate riverbank. Chu Shangya was filled with anger and grievance, questioning the husband. Why expose the matter to the media without any discussion? Completely ignoring that she was at the center of the storm. Fang Taxi responded angrily. Li Liangmei had long set her sights on Wu Guangzai's old case. She took out burnt fragments and accused Chu Shangya of concealing the murder suspicion all along, threatening the Fenpiao gang. This made her, as both her husband and prosecutor, feel an unprecedented sense of betrayal. He told his wife that only by playing the role of a pure victim in this storm, only then could he possibly survive this power struggle. However, Chu Shangya, has her own obsession. She longs to shine again, longing to return to the peak of his acting career. For this, he even went so far as to maintain a twisted relationship with Li Liangmei. Their values completely broke apart here. Immediately after, a carefully orchestrated press conference is underway. Rookie actor Bae Young-sung tearfully exposed the industry's unspoken rules on stage. And the mastermind behind all this was Mrs. Fan, thanking him for his sense of justice. The prosecutor's identity revealed Mayor Nam Hai-hoon's acceptance, details of the hospitality, and evidence of illegal property transactions. Even his in-law, the chief prosecutor Zhu Wangxi, recordings of covering up crimes were also played publicly.
If anyone gives up, I'll take you one by one. If anyone made a decision, what would you know?
In front of the camera, he tearfully analyzed his inner struggles. He declared that, even in dangerous situations, we must correct our mistakes. This earned him overwhelming trust among the people. Li Liangmei, watching the live stream, was furious. Going downstairs, he found Chu Shangya coming looking for him. He stated, if the public matter is decided by the husband on his own, she will try other ways to make amends. As long as it doesn't affect the broadcast of the work, all it gets is a headshot with an egg.
The whole world stinks, 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 smur, stinking sin, stinking smur, stinking smur.
Stinky, stinky, stinky.
When Li Liangmei walked away with a mocking smile, Chu Shangya stood alone at the end of the corridor, her eyes hollow and heartbreaking. Meanwhile, not far away at a restaurant, Fang Taxi, enjoying the vanity of becoming a hero. Her sister excitedly boasted about her brother's achievements, imagining that the congressman's gold badge was already within reach. Mrs. Fang accepted the compliment expressionlessly. Huang Jingyuan's call brought the latest prison intelligence. Park Jae-sung's release date has already been set for next Monday, and that self-media person who has been secretly causing trouble, Cho Ji-ho, has recently been visiting Park Jae-bang more often. Tai-si realized that real danger was rapidly approaching him. Meanwhile, Cho Ji-ho and Lee Ryan-mai were dreaming of the birth of a great drama. At this moment, Chu Shangya sat in front of the mirror, carefully dressing up. Finally, he made up his mind and made a decision. Huang Jingyuan, who was in charge of surveillance, discovered that Chu Shangya arranged to meet someone late at night. He took photos and sent them to Fang Taixi as a thanks. Fang Taixi was horrified to discover that the other party was Li Liangmei's husband, the ruler of the nation's third-largest chaebol family. Chu Shangya, who broke the rules and threatened to meet again. He found the big shot he had previously served. The whole nation sought help. He took out a cigarette. In front of the big shots, he doesn't hide his feelings at all.
You're simply just.
But this time, Chu Shangya wasn't here to rekindle their relationship. After he killed someone, it was the bodyguard who took the blame and went to jail. Now that he is about to be released from prison, he has declared he will expose everything. This includes evidence that the entire city accepts sexual services. Chu Shangya originally hoped that all citizens would step in to help, but the other party made it clear that they would no longer worry about scoundrels like Park Jae-sung. But Chu Shangya, whose hands were stained with blood, was completely different. Quan Shimin clearly knew about the unknown side of her husband, Fang Taxi. After exposing the male mayor's scandal, Fang Taxi, known among the public as the prosecutor of justice, behind him, Kim Soo-kwon Jong-wook also prepared to seize this opportunity. allow Fang Taixi to run for MP. This undoubtedly gave him a ticket to the pinnacle of power. While the group was having a lively conversation, Li Liangmei came to Huang Zhongshu uninvited. He had no fondness for this stepmother at all. Frankly stated, my father was old and confused in the city, tricked by a charlatan. In his later years, he brought shame to the entire family. He even directly scolded Li Liangmei for hitting the target.
Give it a light.
But Li Liangmei didn't have time to argue with her. She stayed still under the table with her feet. He kicked Fang Taixi with a loud voice after the round ended. The two of them arrived at the parking lot. Li Liangmei wore a playful smile, telling Mrs. Fang that she had made a grave mistake worthy of death. Fang Taixi was not intimidated by these harsh words. However, Li Liangmei clearly held more of the trump cards in her hand before parting.
She seemed to be reminding Fang Taixi that these people still didn't know.
At this time, Park Jae-sung's wardrobe in prison was covered with photos of Chu Shangya. She looked at Chu Shangya's wedding photo, filled with a mix of love and hate, constantly changing on her face. On the other side, Fang Taixi arrived at the procuratorate. What greeted her was a long-prepared acceptance meeting. At a high-level meeting, everyone unanimously decided to suspend Fang Taixi. But the next second, Fang Taixi rushed straight into the conference room. He loudly mocked these Taoist appearances. The gloomy prosecutor pointed out bluntly, when he pledged allegiance to the organization, no one remembered his name as it was in trouble. Instead, it brought everyone together. He even threatened to start by talking about the Ruiguang Hotel. At that moment, the entire conference room fell into a deathly silence. Thanks. He publicly placed his resignation letter. He announced his resignation from this already corrupt position. He is ready to face the upcoming election with a brand new attitude. His resolute and arrogant silhouette. This caused everyone present to feel an inexplicable sense of fear. He walked out of the prosecutor's office, facing the reporter's barrage. He delivered a highly provocative speech. He claimed he had been expelled. The whistleblower must fight for the interests of the people. He portrayed himself as a hero who refused to bow to power. This superb acting not only fooled the media, this also earned him immense political popularity. At this moment, Li Liangmei was in a good mood. We are very much looking forward to the upcoming great show. Kui Zhihao came to report the progress. He had already arranged to meet Park Jae-sung, who was about to be released from prison. Fortunately, after obtaining the crucial evidence, will be exposed online. Little did he know, Fang Taixi's men had already slipped into his car. Chu Shangya soon received a call from Park Jae-sung. This time, Chu Shangya was preparing her own dedicated work. Recent public opinion has seriously affected the filming of the film, so he refused Park Jae-sung's request to meet. Prime Minister Park has already been enraged. He admitted he will make everything public. By then, the whole country would know the secret behind his fake marriage with Mrs. Fang. Chu Shangya tiredly put down his phone, and at that moment, having overheard everything, Fang Taixi fisted. I couldn't help but clench my anger at being deceived. But in the next second, he quickly adjusted his state again. He spoke eloquently in front of the TV station's cameras. Cho Ji-ho took Park Jae-hyang to a remote fast food restaurant. Despite being deceived countless times by Chu Shangya, Park Sai-xiang, still holding on to a glimmer of hope, Cho Ji-ho could only promise to let Chu Shangya return to his side. Park Jae-hyang. Finally, he took out a voice recorder, and the moment it was inserted into the computer, those long-sealed voices rang out again. That was Chu Shangya's most humble place, and the darkest moments. Just as Kui Zhihao was immersed in the truth, Fang Taixi, suddenly, he appeared, frantically snatching the laptop containing the evidence. He even went so far as to fight in public, filled with murderous intent. Permeating the air, he pulled Park Jae-hyang into the bathroom. He grabbed the other person's neck and threatened them in the coldest tone.
Die on this side of the hand.
After venting his anger, Mrs. Fang turned and left. At this moment, Huang Jingyuan was referring to the recording files. Finally, the truth of the story was clarified. Han Jisu's name is the core of the whole case. As an actress, she strongly resists intimate scenes, especially when she was added at the last minute just to grab attention. She was quite something. A rational disgust with women confides their situation to the chaebols investing. Then, Representative Wu forcibly dragged him out. At Han Jisu's most desperate moment, popular actress Chu Shangya stepped forward, recording the entire process with her assistant. He condemned Representative Wu's bad behavior, but Wu was completely unconvinced. After all, Chu Shangya was the one who made her famous. But this time, Chu Shangya seemed determined to make a move.
Send the plan, send the plan.
Chu Shangya hid Jisoo and comforted him. Don't answer any calls, saying you'll find a lawyer to handle it. But Jisoo said she didn't want to make a big deal out of it, afraid of making a joke. It would completely ruin his acting career. After careful consideration, he decided to have a proper talk with Representative Wus, cut out intimate scenes and finish the rest of the scenes. The two embraced tightly. On the surface, they were inseparable friends. Little did they know, the two had an even closer relationship. And Jisoo's decision will also plunge her into a deep abyss. That day he received an invitation to act, but when they arrived, they noticed something was wrong. Inside sat two top tycoons. In a dark room, Representative Wu seemed to be trading goods. He introduced Yunxi. Only then did he realize that he had been used by Representative Wu as a bargaining chip in the full-color deal. He desperately tried to escape, but it was clearly too late. Jisoo endured inhuman torment. In the end, he chose suicide. He was the first casualty in this power game. His death marked the collapse of the domino. This is the most heartbreaking experience in a top celebrity's life. His most beloved woman is forced to give up to the chaebol for a full sex transaction. Unable to bear the humiliation, he committed suicide. Her whole body convulsed, so sad that I couldn't even make a sound. She lay in bed, looking back at the two of them in love. Every beat of the flame of revenge spreads in my heart. At TG's funeral, Chu met Representative Wu again. Her suppressed emotions finally burst out. The two argued in the morning hall, and Taishi stepped forward from the side. This was also their first meeting, and Fang Taishi was the reason for his decision. Is it because he clearly knows why Jisoo committed suicide? At that time, Fang Taixi was still at the bottom of the procuratorate, and that night, the driver row witnesses everything happening. Jisoo is presented as a commodity by Representative, owed to the chaebol as bargaining chips in the Kwanzaa deal. Back then, Fang Taixi's father was also killed by the inspection system. For revenge, he vaguely felt this was a rare opportunity. Mrs. Fang thanked her and began secretly gathering information about Representative Wu he discovered. This man had long since become allies with Chairman Jan through dirty ties. But behind the scenes, they extorted huge sums of money through threats and extortion of female artists. Chu Shangya's mental state deteriorated day by day. He even developed severe anorexia, often leaning against the toilet late at night and vomiting violently. To prevent him from taking extreme measures, so he simply confined him in an apartment. This was also the first time Chu Shangya met Park Sai's partner. It was a bodyguard sent by Representative Wu. However, the so-called protection is nothing more than a disguised form of surveillance. Chu Shangya numbed herself with alcohol every day. The clock in the apartment ticks away. Every second tormented her weak, mute nerves. But this time, he suddenly noticed that there seemed to be a camera on the clock. Only then did he realize he was being watched at all times. He started smashing it like crazy. Inside the room, all the furnishings tried to vent their despair through destruction. He looked at those trophies that once represented honor. Now, all I see are filthy contracts, stained with blood. He dialed the police number, his voice trembling as he pleaded for help. But at that moment, a sinister voice came through the phone. It turned out that man had been monitoring everything about him all along. He threatened him with those unsightly video archives, leaving him unable to escape his control. Representative Wu gave an extremely cruel warning over the phone. His reputation and life were in his hands. He screamed wildly in the room. In the end, he collapsed onto the messy floor. That once dazzling diva. Now, all that remains is scars and endless tears that night. Driven by a desire for revenge, Chu Shangya entered Mr. Wu's room, in hand gripping that cold dagger tightly. Looking at the culprit who killed his lover before him, Chu Shangya acted without hesitation. Representative Wu struggled desperately, and the two tumbled to the ground. After Chu Shangya stabbed him again, Representative Wu collapsed to the ground, stopping his struggle. But in fact, at this point, Representative Wu was not completely dead yet. But just then, there was a hurried knock at the door. But in the next moment, many people entered. It turned out it was just a play. But Huang Jinyuan saw Chu Shangya approaching the real performance. This was clearly an outlet of his genuine inner emotions. Meanwhile, in an interview on Like Cho Ji-ho Park, he finally revealed the truth behind the murder. He recalled the night when Shangya attempted suicide but failed. He saved the dying goddess. At that moment, Shangya lay in her arms, her eyes hollow as she spoke of the loneliness of her mother's early passing, and an intense desire for a life with dignity. She took advantage of the deep affection she looked at in front of her. He claimed he was willing to devote the rest of his life to her, as long as there is no representative to be thorough. Disappear from the world.
Then you must do well, and my life must be done well by you.
This deadly temptation completely drove Zai Xiang to lose his sanity. He willingly became the tool being manipulated. Ironically, after Xiang was imprisoned for this reason, but Shangya turned and threw herself into the arms of a more powerful man. When Xiang learned of Shangya and Fang Taxi's marriage, that kind of anger from being betrayed led him decide to reveal the last trump card in his hand, recording the truth behind all these dirty deals. He wanted to completely unmask the hypocrisy of this couple in court. Meanwhile, Fang Taxi was in the bathroom going wild with his wife. He roared and questioned why he hadn't told him earlier, having such a government that could destroy everything. He knew well that once the recording was exposed, all of his political prospects will vanish into thin air. But Shangya only responded with a cold sneer, claiming that after Jixiu's death, he had long lost his mind. If Park Jae-hyang hadn't killed Representative, he would have died himself. But Fang was too thankful. But suddenly he said, it turned out Fang Taxi was involved. After investigation, it was found that when Representative Wu used artists for full-color transactions, he left behind some evidence to threaten those chaebols. Thus, they achieved their own goals. After being blackmailed by Representative Wu, Quan Shimin had already ordered professional assassins. The bloodstain test results from that night proved that, aside from the photos, there are also traces of DNA from another man. It turned out that when Park Jae-sang tried to assassinate Representative, the other party was not completely dead, and then an assassin sneaked into the room. Finally, he delivered a fatal blow. From the very beginning, this murder was a contest between multiple factions, and in mutual referencing, they are the scapegoat most easily abandoned. But after Mrs. Fang discovered the truth, she chose to do so. Everything was hidden. He only brought with him the scandals he had collected from Representative Wu. He privately arranged to meet Qiu Shangya. He was willing to join forces with Shangya to achieve their goals. Qiu Shangya also understood that even though Representative Wu was already dead, but to survive in the entertainment industry, other similar roles still appear. He had considered leaving the entertainment industry, but whenever he thought about Jisu's death, he dismissed the idea. Although Fang Taxi holds some dirt on herself, Qiu Shangya is still very puzzled. How will the other person protect themselves?
I have to take care of my belly. Nourish your belly. Nourish your belly. Nourishing the belly. Nourishing the belly. Nourishing the belly.
Fang Taxi said that, if the two join forces in the future, they will hold even greater power than the chaebols. And he promised to Qiu Shangya all the scandals about him. He would take everything with him to the grave. The timeline returns to the present, and Fang Taxi confesses everything. Qiu Shangya finally understood. Back then, it was the entire city who sent people to kill Wu Representative Fang Taxi, who said he still kept the evidence from back then, just waiting for the right moment to crush the WR group. Qiu Shangya, upon learning the truth, was emotionally devastated.
Back then, in order to seek revenge, to survive, she seduces Park Jae-sang, ruining his life. And you actually don't care! I'm sure! Do you get it?
I don't care about a single day!
Not caring about that day! Not caring about that day! Not caring about that day!
While Qiu Shangya and Fang Taxi argued, Huang Jingyuan kept secretly eavesdropping. At this moment, he finally recognized Fang Taxi. He is a man who will stop at nothing to climb the ladder. Qiu Shangya turned and left, exhausted, trying to escape by car. But I don't know where I can escape. Suddenly, at a bend, he nearly hit the construction workers. When he crawled out of the car barefoot, on the big screen, the scandal of his alleged murder was being played. In that moment, all the glory turned to nothing. He stood on the night street, all around. All the mocking looks were his destined hell. At the same time, Huang Jingyuan walked out of the crowd. Feeling distressed, he remembered death again, mother's words. It turned out that during Huang Jingyuan's student days, his father drank heavily every day. He gambled badly and often beat his mother. Feeling sorry for her, he rushed in wanting to protect her. But her father roughly pushed her away. He held his mother tightly, his eyes vacant, his heart filled only with despair. However, what broke him the most was that when he came home from school that day, he discovered that his mother had hanged herself. He sat on the ground, crying his heart out, and from that moment on, something in his heart died completely. He took a knife and left. Underground casino. At this moment, Fang Taxi had already started paying attention to the other person. In the interrogation room, Fang Taxi asked a strange question. Huang Jingyuan said with a hollow gaze, if time could turn back, he would kill that bastard before his mother died. Huang Jingyuan was in prison for intentional murder, but after he was released, having lost everything, he turned to drugs. This time, after serving the guests, secretly taking a large amount of cash from the other party's safe. But when he was about to leave and look at himself in the mirror, this ghostly state, he himself didn't know why he ended up like this. But the next day, he still went with cash to buy drugs. But when he left, he happened to encounter a Christian police officer investigating a case. He hurried away, but ran into Fan Taxi outside the stairs. But Fan Taxi didn't arrest him. Instead, he took him to a barbershop. Although the middle-aged woman complained aloud that she had brought an unknown woman, but she still prepared a meal for Huang Jingyuan with a heartfelt heart. Fan Taxi told her that he had helped her reduce her sentence years ago. He wanted to apologize to this filthy world. But seeing Huang Jingyuan in such a desperate state, she felt very disappointed. Huang Jingyuan sneered and retorted, "What achievement can someone who has killed possibly have? In this dirty world, living despicably is nothing to thank the other side too much." She didn't give up on him, but instead proposed to join forces to accomplish something big. Fan Taxi knew Huang Jingyuan very well, knowing that the other person's dream is to become an actor. So he promised to create a stage for the other party to live anew. Thus, Huang Jingyuan became the sharpest knife in Fan Taxi's hand. He was specifically responsible for handling those shady matters for him. Next, Huang Jingyuan began to take on various roles. Approaching Qiu Shangya, under Fan Taxi's arrangement, he became Qiu Shangya's stand-in. On set, the director praised Qiu Shangya as a true actress. Huang Jingyuan quietly observed this woman from the shadows. She discovered Qiu Shangya actually lived in pain, but what truly made her feel a sense of shared suffering, what really feels like Qiu Shangya's tearful lament is this:
You don't want to live or die anymore.
Qiu Shangya's mindset in killing was exactly the same as when she killed her own father back then. It turns out the other party has also been living in hell all along. He recalled the night his mother hanged herself again. TV was also playing her mother's favorite dramas. In the later years of his downfall, Huang Jingyuan would often look at Qiu Shangya's billboards. A special feeling had already arisen in his heart. At this moment, Huang Jingyuan decided not to be the lead for Fan Taxi anymore. The puppet wants to reveal the truth, he told Qiu Shangya. Huang Jingyuan took Qiu Shangya to his secret base on the wall. Photos of Qiu Shangya and news briefings were posted everywhere. Qiu Shangya looked at these things with a very complicated expression. Huang Jingyuan said frankly, he had indeed been watching him all along, but she also admitted she couldn't let go of him. Because when she saw Qiu Shangya crying on TV, Huang Jingyuan felt as if he was seeing his own version of himself. Qiu Shangya asked Huang Jingyuan if he was afraid of the murderer. Huang Jingyuan said he felt sorry for Qiu Shangya. These two women were also betrayed by life in a dim room. A silent alliance was formed. But in his sleep, Qiu Shangya mistook him for Jisoo. Meanwhile, Fan Taxi covered up the fact that Qiu Shangya had instigated a murder. It quickly fermented online. She is fighting for her political future, running around everywhere. She ignored the advice from the party's top brass, insisted on running for office, and firmly believed he could turn things around. She knew it was all Li Liangmei's doing, so he barged straight into President Zhang's birthday banquet. At this time, Li Liangmei was asking her daughter to sing to please the president. This was to ensure the chairman could leave more shares in the will. At this time, Li Liangmei also learned about the murder case involving Representative Wu, which was actually related to the chairman. Fan Taxi walked into the room and laid his cards on the table with the president. He took out a thick stack of documents. He said this was evidence proving the chairman was the real culprit, although someone like the president can break through the law. But faced with such ironclad evidence, it can be overwhelming. Fan Taxi threatened the president, if the negative news caused by Li Liangmei is not dealt with quickly, she would reveal the evidence, making the president tremble with anger and breathe rapidly. In the end, he collapsed directly onto the sofa. Li Liangmei overheard everything from outside the door. He rushed into the room, and at that moment, the president was convulsing all over. Soon, a disgusting smell began to spread. To make a move, he personally ran to the bathroom, wildly rubbed, her underwear stained with black marks. His gaze became unusually wild. Ordinary people suggest calling 119, but he scolded her hysterically. He said, "Calling an ambulance now is a public notice. The world's presidents are dying." After calming down, she carried a bowl of water. He walked back into the room. Looking at the unconscious president, he said obsequiously. At that moment, the president suddenly opened his eyes and grabbed Li Liangmei's hair, warned her to clean up all those shameful matters. Although Li Liangmei was terrified, when the president fainted again, her gaze grew even colder. He called his subordinates. They had them suppress all recordings and programs related to Wu's case, because now even the president is involved, and the risk is too great. He began planning Plan B, ready to squeeze every last bit of value from the guild leader before he completely dies. With Huang Jingyuan's help, Qiu Shangya arrived at a rundown residential area. He found Park Jae-sang's mother. From the reflection of the mirror, he happened to see Park Jae-sang released from prison, and a dramatic scene unfolded. Qiu Shangya knelt on the ground crying bitterly, apologizing non-stop. She said she was in so much pain at the time. He then casually promised Park Jae to kill each other. Representative Wu would be with her from now on. He didn't expect her to take it seriously. At that moment, Park Jae-sang appeared. Her earlier acting seemed to have had an effect. Park Jae-chang's eyes glistened with tears. Park Jae-sang, the man who once worked for him and loved him. Once again, Chiu Shangya toyed with him in the palm of his hand. Chiu Shangya deliberately found a coffee shop by the window. In response, Park Jae-sang first bowed his head and apologized. His tone was full of humility and apology. He tearfully confessed to himself, "Back then, it was because life was worse than death that I said those words." She never expected things to turn out this way. She behaved extremely humble, a request with a face streaked with tears. Park Jae-sang refused to release the recording at that moment. She looked like a weak woman driven to desperation by life. Park Sae-seong let out an angry, cold laugh upon hearing this. She finally saw through this woman. She wasn't confessing at all. She was simply afraid her true colors would be exposed. She roared, accusing Chiu Shangya of ruining her life. She wanted Chiu Shangya to experience the taste of hell as well. At that moment, Chiu Shangya's expression suddenly changed. She stopped crying, and the weakness in her eyes vanished instantly. She gracefully wiped away her tears. He exuded a cold aura.
Did you get acquainted and married? Really, beast.
This fleeting shift from humble to proud completely enraged Park Jae-sang. He went mad, flipping the table and tightly grabbing Chiu Shangya's neck. And this is precisely part of Chiu Shangya's plan. He deliberately chose a cafe with floor-to-ceiling windows. He deliberately provoked Park Jae-sang just to get passers-by to film this scene. Sure enough, passers-by outside the window all took out their phones to record the violent incident. Park Jae-sang ran away with a knife, while Chiu Shangya collapsed to the ground coughing non-stop. This scene successfully removed Chiu Shangya from negative news. The haunted suspect becomes a pitiable victim. But that wasn't enough. Huang Jingyuan was once Fang Taxi's most loyal subordinate. Chiu Shangya was just using tricks to exploit a situation, and cracks began to appear in their relationship. Fang Tai apologized and questioned Huang Jingyuan. Last night, he was with Chiu Shangya and accused him of crossing the line. Huang Jingyuan did not back down. Instead, it carries a hint of sadness. He said, "This is Fang Taishi, a dispensing of the emperors. Turn him into this." The two had a fierce argument. Fang Taixi warned him sternly. He told him not to appear around her or Chiu Shangya again. Then, he left without looking back. Huang Jingyuan watched Fang Taxi's departing figure. His eyes were filled with sadness and anger. This hunting dog of his could turn against him at any moment. The host, Fang Taxi, sat in the car, looking irritated. He dialed President Kwang's number, only to find that the person answering was Kwang Shu. Kwang Zhongshu was staying by the unconscious old chairman's side, holding a wine jug. His expression was mocking. He told Fang Taishi, "If the old chairman falls, he will naturally take over WR Group." He planned to use the current public opinion storm to make the fire burn even fiercer. This helps protect their shares Fang Taixi. On the phone, he threatened to fight to the death, but Quan Jong-wook didn't care at all. He even said that whenever he thought about being beaten by his father since childhood, he wanted to fabricate baseless charges to ruin the old chairman's reputation. Fang Taixi mentioned files involving media, government, and financial conglomerates, attempting to use this to secure a nomination within the party. Quan Zhongshu just mockingly asked him back, only caring about whether their own survival is meaningful. He reminded Mrs. Fang that Chiu Shangya and he were grasshoppers on the same rope. If Chiu Shangya was finished, he wouldn't be able to escape. Meanwhile, the news was broadcast on TV about his cancellation of his party nomination. The internet was filled with insults from Fan Taxi and Chiu Shangya. The video of Chiu Shangya being beaten in a cafe has aroused some sympathy, but most netizens still weren't buying it, and it was only late at night that they were too thankful. Back to the dim apartment, she received a video. In the video, the prostitute looked haggard. He announced that he would reveal everything at 8:30 p.m. Fang Tai thanked him and immediately called Chiu Shangya. Chiu Shangya sat on the floor in front of the dressing mirror, her face streaked with tears. She told Fang Taxi on the other end of the phone that they were all hypocrites. They all use others for their own purposes. He felt this was karma, unless either they or Park Jae-hayang died. Otherwise, none of this will ever end. Meanwhile, Huang Kyung-wang had already tracked down Park Jae-hayang's location. Just as she was about to stop him from exposing the matter, she suddenly received a phone call. It made his face change drastically. He arrived at a hotel. I asked at the front desk about the specific room when he walked into the bathroom with the lights on, but what he saw was an extremely terrifying scene. Medicine bottles were scattered all over the ground. The white towel was stained red with blood. The bathtub was filled with blood. Seeing this moment, Huang Zhongwang recalled the scene of his mother's suicide. Chiu Shangya was limping weakly at the edge of the bathtub, acting like he had gone mad, trying to pull Chiu Shangya out. Desperate cries echoed throughout the bathroom. Chiu Shangya left a letter for Huang Jingyuan beside him.
The whole world rests on your shoulders. Never again. Nothing happens if you don't do it this way. The world guarantees you. Trust me, thank you. Thank you.
He heard Qiu Shangya's words. The voiceover is about loneliness, despair, and a final farewell. Huang Kongwen got into the car and got Park Jae-sung's final location. His gaze was icy as he started the car and hurriedly drove away. At 8:30 p.m., people all over the world are glued to their phones and computers, waiting for that revelation. The countdown to the live broadcast ended. The screen lit up, but what emerged was not a leak. Instead, it was a chilling scene. In the dim room, a figure lies in the bathroom. The white curtains swayed strangely in the wind, and Park Jae seemed to have committed suicide to feign taxi. Seeing this scene in the car, his emotions completely spiraled out of control. She rushed into the hospital and, under the siege of reporters, searched for Qiu Shangya. But what she saw was the woman lying in the emergency bed, her life hanging by a thread. The doctor told her that Qiu Shangya had lost too much blood. But for now, there is no life-threatening danger. While waiting outside the operating room, she recalled the scene of her deceased father being rescued again. He seemed to see the innocent version of himself from years ago. Meanwhile, the health of all citizens is extremely poor. It was already on the brink of collapse. Li Liangmei's face was cold, asked the doctor to do whatever it takes. He wanted the old chairman to hold out until the election. Li Liangmei now only needs to support the next presidential candidate. This allows for amendments to the insurance law early in the term. Then the shares of WR Life would end up in her hands. At the same time, to avoid media criticism, he decided to take him home tomorrow. Qiu Shangya, who was in the secret treatment ward, woke up. He looked at the news on his phone and noticed that public opinion was beginning to reverse. Netizens began to support him, Fang Taxi, and walked in. The two had a fierce argument. Fang Taxi roared, questioning why he acted on his own. Qiu Shangya calmly retorted, "Are you really going to wait for his slow plan?" They suspect each other. He killed Park Jae-sung, but tacitly decided to maintain the status quo. Because as long as Park Jae-sung dies and the recording disappears, they are safe. Fang Taxi realized he had forced Qiu Shangya into this state. He gently embraced him tightly in the hospital room. At this moment, they didn't seem like husband and wife, more like beasts, licking each other's wounds in the dark. They decided to use this failed suicide attempt to completely reverse public opinion, regaining the chance for nomination. At this time, Li Liangmei planned to win over presidential candidate Sang Guoyuan. But this person was highly controversial, so he brought in Chui Ji-ho. He decided to write a gorgeous, bold, and exciting script. Meanwhile, Qiu Shangya and Fang Taxi held a grand press conference. Qiu Shangya stood in front of the microphone looking haggard with an IV drip, as weak as Park. Mrs. Fang also stood aside and spoke passionately, swearing they had never incited murder. The flashes below the stage flashed in a flood, and Qiu Shangya's eyes darkened. He successfully won public sympathy. Li Liangmei looked at those foolish netizens watching the live stream. He had already been successfully incited by the couple. He was already planning his next move. Kwon Jong-shu, however, came uninvited with a dog.
Put yourself down. Our father-in-law, father-in-law, father-in-law!
Duke, D.U. Geng. I am the only rogue of the only family, the only rogue, the rogue of the family, the scoundrel scoop, Mang.
But just then, Fang Taxi released another major piece of news during the live stream. The police have also begun investigating Park Jae-sung's cause of death, and it is now highly likely that he was murdered, because the external monitor captured women coming and going. However, the building's internal surveillance cameras did not capture anything, indicating that the footage was deliberately deleted. Fang Taxi. The first thing that came to mind was Huang Jingyuan. Fang Taxi interrupted the conversation. Taking Qiu Shangya away, she left amid a dense flash and reporters questioning her. The central government is too reluctant, walking forward with Qiu Shangya, his face haggard. But deep in her eyes, there was a sense of resolve. He knew that this war of power, lies, and survival was only just beginning. Everyone is running for the truth, for their own desires. Perhaps it has long been buried beneath layers of scripts.
I've come here. I could only tear it off.